Good night, everyone. Tonight, God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Ernie Jess Spears, and I'm here to give you some news and a word on tonight. Pretty much it's gonna be update what I did yesterday. Now the debt ceiling make it suspended. I mean, just it is suspended. So the debt limit deal lifting to debt ceiling. The deal reaches by President Bennett and Speaker Kevin McCarthy, will suspend the nation debit limit until January to 2025. So this would allow the government to keep borrowing money so it can pay bills on time. So now you ain't gonna have a limit. This is spending the whole, debt ceiling. So new details, in the debt limit deal where 136 billion in cuts from two years of suspended gap additional work requirement for food stamps and cuts to IRS. So the debt ceiling deal passed the House of the United States to move closer to preventing, history default. So they went on and passed the bill for suspending the debt ceiling, so it won't cause default. And so that's gonna be good until 2025. It's gonna be good for that. That way they don't have to keep on borrowing money. They don't have a limit, and until to just the new details, until further notice. So it's gonna be suspended until 2025. So that's the decision they came up with to keep from going to default. So and I still, and I had talked about retirement social security benefits also yesterday, and I add certain stuff on, to prevent and save social security benefit. So we need to save social security benefit. Also, I will save the SNAP, food stamp, and I see they cutting the food stamp. So we still have to do some cut. So well, since they suspend that ceiling, they don't have a spending limit, you know. So we still have so the program, still the program welfare benefits, that still needs to go into effect. That still needs to be cut after 8 months after, to find a job. So if we get many people as possible to work, we will be taking taxes. They will be paying taxes towards the budget. So also all immigrants, they're coming down to the United States. They also have to find a job. And they also have to find a job. They have 8 months to find a job also. You know, and so no more free welfare benefits. So we won't be in this predicament like this again. So this is how the program will work. So when you apply for welfare, apply for welfare, you have from that time on to 8 months to find a job. You know, you have to find a job. Once you find a job, then you'll be cut off, and then you have to update your food stamps and your Medicaid based on your income. So they also have a temporary service that can help you find a job also. So Social Security, we have to so Social Security we trying to save, cut welfare benefits. You know, you can get the welfare benefits until you find a job. And after 8 months, so everyone have to work and pay taxes, including immigrants. They have 8 months to find a job. After 8 months, there will be an update on your food stamps and your Medicaid based on your income. So soon you find a job, your welfare be cut off, and you have to update your food stamps and your Medicaid based on your income. So with a job, welfare, it will be cut off with a job. So now since welfare will be cut off after 8 months, I'm raising the minimum wage. So most many other states, you know, they already had increased their minimum wage. So I know Louisiana minimum wage is still 7.25. So if you are in other states and y'all minimum wage went up already, so this is not for y'all because most states, they went up on the minimum wage like 12, $13 an hour. So Louisiana was still 7.25 an hour, so I'm gonna boost it up to 11.25 an hour. Since they won't be getting welfare no more, they're gonna have to work, and they have to continue on getting the food stamp. But I think they're cutting the food stamp because it's so expensive. It's like a pack of pork chop, like $15 to $20. So welfare will be cut off, so minimum wage will increase. So you will continue on getting SNAP food stamp, and but they have a new they cutting the food stamp on the debt ceiling. So we'll see how they're gonna work out with the food stamp. Social Security will be saved, and if you're able to work, you have to work. The only one that still be on welfare if you're sick, you're pregnant, or disabled. You know, um, so that's what I have for the news. The update on the food stamps and welfare, and the debt ceiling has passed. Passed the bill. So they're suspending the debt ceiling, and it gonna even goes to like January 2025. So I do have a word for you tonight. It's it's not with David. So we're gonna get back with David back on track tomorrow. And I don't, I still have to work 9 to 5 job. So sometime when I come home, and David pretty much is long. But we're gonna do one of David's songs from Song 124. So we're gonna do one of his songs. The snare had been broken. Now Israel acknowledged. 'Cause you remember God had to keep on telling you, don't forget your God. That I done got you from out of slavery. Don't you forget. But now we see in Psalms 124 that has acknowledged God. So Israel acknowledged that God has saved them. We have to remember that God is the one that's saving us. Because I know I ain't gonna never forget. So when the Egyptian came, to attack them, if it had not been God on our side, you just had God had put them under the Red Sea. The Israelites said we could have been under that Red Sea if it had not been for God on our side. So when people, when it had not been for God on our side, and when the people, when the Egyptian was attacking them, it was behind them. That could have been them. They said, if God hadn't been on this side. So they acknowledge that. So I know me or anyone else been through a time, been through a hard time if it had not been for God on our side. We see how Saul was falling apart. God took his spirit away from him. He just couldn't get things right. He just was taking everything out on David. And when we in this dark storm, in that dark valley, like David said, when you in that dark valley, we need God in our life in that storm. And sometimes you're going to feel like, you're in it alone. But I'm telling you, God always right there. We always feel alone in that dark valley, but God always right there. He was right there by Joe the whole time. So the Egyptian would have swallowed them up alive, if their anger flew against us. If God wouldn't have put Pharaoh's whole army under the Red Sea. Now you see what Israel and them said? Israel has said, The Egyptians would have swallowed us up. If God wouldn't have put them under that Red Sea. Because see, they acknowledge. At first they could. God had to keep on telling you. Don't forget about your mighty God who got you out of there. Don't forget how God had fed you. Don't forget how God had hit that rock and that water came out. Even though Moses didn't follow instructions, but you still have some water. God had to keep on reminding them. But now we see it is sucking. It is sucking. They're not. Now, if God wouldn't have used his power, the flood would have engulfed us. The torment would have swept us away. You know how it swept the Egyptian away? Now, the Israelites say that could have been us. If God had not been on our side. So the regular water would have swept us away. So now they acknowledge, if God hadn't been on our side, you know, God hadn't been on our side. They complained the whole time, but now they see. The Egyptian came after the Israelites, but God has swept them into the Red Sea. The entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelite into the sea. Not one of them survived. You remember they had got all hysterical. They got all upset. And telling Moses that you brought us out here to die. They're behind us. Moses had told them what God said. You will not see your enemy no more. And sure enough, after God got through with the Pharaoh men, they had not seen them no more because God had put them under that Red Sea. And they were getting hysterical all for nothing. And God said, Moses said, not one has survived. So praise be to the Lord who had not let us be torn into the teeth. Torn by their teeth. So they said, praise be the Lord. Now they're praising God now. You couldn't even get the Israelites to praise God back then. But now they said, praise the Lord. Because it hadn't been for God. They would have tore us to pieces with their teeth. So thank God. Thank God for deliverance. For all the Pharaoh army that wish they could never have been delivered from if God had not been on our side, if God the Lord appeared for them. So they acknowledge that all they went to, if it had not been for God on our side, we would have been under that Red Sea. We would have died in that desert, for hunger, for being thirsty. So not the Lord appeared for them. So all the glory, so now they know all the glory belongs to God. God couldn't even get them, to recognize him then. But they recognize it now. They say all the glory belongs to God, who I will give all the praises to. So we have escaped like birds from the clouds of snares. The snare had been broken. See, there was a slave. There was a slave in Egypt. And they're saying that God came along and snatched them away from that slavery. That's what they say. They said they escaped like birds. There was the birds that was enslaved in the Pharaoh. And then when God came along, God broke that snare. And they came running out like birds. And you remember how they marched out? There was a whole nation. Remember, we did this from way back from the beginning. You remember when they did came out, they march on out. They march on out like birds. That's what they say. They said they escaped like birds. And they ain't lying. Because when I put that package out, when God had broke that snare, they came marching out of there like a bird. So the snare had been broken and they had escaped like birds. So the teeth of the wicked men, are like the spells of arrow, like swords and knives. But God will not give them up to them, either to Satan. Now God protect them until it's time for them to go to their land. Not one, and the Ammonites, that was power, and that was Esau family offspring. So you had cousin to cousin fighting against each other. But by how powerful they was, they still could not beat the Israelite with God on their side. So God will not give them into Satan. Into none of their power. So when they have sized them and got them from Pharaoh and his army, you see, with God on their side, there can be any powerful nation. There can be any powerful nation. Ammonites was a powerful nation, but with God on their side, they were able to beat down the Ammonites. And that was their own cousin. That was Esau offspring. So they all was in slavery together. But when they came out, you had some of the Israelites went their own way, some followed Moses. With Esau family, they came up with their own name, Ammonites. They came up with their own stuff and they went their way. So a bird is trapped in a big net and cannot escape. The Israelite, was in Egypt and it could not escape. But God had broke that net. He had broke that net, for them to get out of there. And that's what they say. That's what they're saying. We were like birds. We were like birds. We were trapped in a big net. And we could not escape until God came and broke that snare. And they ran out of there like birds. So they escaped like birds. The snare was broken. And they had escaped. When God came along, he had most of the 5 instructions, but it was God's power that got them from out of there. God got them. God broke that net for them to come out of there. And they came running and marching out of there like birds. They was in a big net, a big old net, until God had to come along and break that snare. So throughout the history of Israel, they should have been destroyed by now. They should have been destroyed by now. Because every time you look around, somebody wants to fight, wants to go into battle with the Israelites. But with God, they could not beat the Israelites. And you'll think they would have been destroyed by now. But no, as long as they had God on their side. Even when God was mad with them, and God had got Deborah and all the rest of them to be their king, to be their judge and everything else, guess what? God was still working behind the scenes, telling Deborah what to do and all this kind of stuff. God was still working behind the scenes to protect them. So throughout the history of Israel, they should have been destroyed by now, by this point. That's just like me and anybody else in the stuff. Every time you look around, this and that happen, and you think you'll be destroyed by now. But with God, you able to climb any mountain. In a mountain that come your way, you able to climb any mountain. But the hand of God has saved them every time. God will save you every time. But you still got to be faithful to God. You still got to pray to God. Because when all you go through and you stop praying and you stop being connected with God, He ain't gonna sit there and let you go through it. When Job was in that predicament, Job was still praying. When Daniel was in that life, Daniel was still praying. We have to keep on praying in our storm. We got to keep on praying when we in that lion den. We got to keep on praying when we in that big old net. We got to keep on praying until God come along and break that net. So many close call. So they had constantly enemies, and so many close calls, you know, when you in that storm, and your enemies already know that God is with you. It's just like with David. Some kept on being mad with David. But he could not really touch David like he wanted to. But God was already there protecting David. David had many close calls. So God loved and preserved them. He loved the Israelites. He preserved them. He protected them. He provided for them. They walked for 40 years. Their shoes didn't wear out. Their clothes didn't get out. They didn't get musted. God had took care of them, provided for them, and everything else until they got to their land. So with God, there's always a way out because He is the creator, of their existence, and no problem is beyond His ability to solve. What's too big for us, it's not too big for God. God is the creator. So He know how to create us out of situation. God know how to create and solve our problem. So our life and future is in God's hands. We can't run. You remember Jonah tried to run? And what he did? Ran right into a big old fish mouth. You can't run from God. God, our life and our future lies in God's hands. He know the beginning to the end. So He give you a assignment, you cannot run. We saw that what Jonah tried to do. He tried to run, get on that ship, had the whole ship shaking till the people had to just throw him overboard. And they had to realize, who you running from? You got this boat all shaking up. They had to throw him overboard. He kept on trying to run from God. You cannot run. So our life and our future is in God's hand. Our help is in the Lord. The only one we should be trusting, and flee to for safety. He our shelter. He our shelter for safety. So no one else cannot save you like God can. So God will provide a way out for us. We need only to look towards Him. He our only provider. He our only safety. Our shelter. We can get under His wings. So all the tricks, all the tricks the Israelite had, all the stuff that the Israelite had went through, with God, they were able to escape like birds. They done went through something. Every time they go out, they had to fight. They were being oppressed, and they were just going through a lot of stuff, but a lot of stuff they put it on themselves, because they started serving other gods. And see, God had to step away from them for a while, and they had to go through it until they had to get rid of their other gods. So God had broken the snare, so the Israelites can escape. Escape and go to their promised land. But Pharaoh had them in a big old net, and they could not move, they could not escape until God came along and broke that snare for them to bust through that net, and so they can run out of there like birds. So the kind of trap used to catch tasty birds in a song that was constructed, of two wooden frames, between which a net was stretched, and the hunter lay flat on the ground, and with a bird wandering into it, and the frame spun close, and a trap the creator in the net. So the Lord, had broken the frame of the trap the enemy has set for His people, to build a net. And the enemy has set a trap for God's people, allowing His chosen ones to escape like free birds. You can hold God's chosen one for a little while, until God come along and break every trap, that Pharaoh had for His people. for every trap that he had for his feet. So that's the story of the Psalms 124. The Israelite acknowledged, all the stuff that they went through. They acknowledged that had not been for God on their side, and that's what we have to do. We have to look back. I'm talking to myself too. We all have to look back and recognize the good stuff that God does for us. When we was in that dark valley, we have to remember, man, if it hadn't been for God on our side, we'll still be in that dark valley, or we'll still be this and that, if it hadn't been for God on our side, we would have made it through. We would have not made it through. So we have to always give God honor. We always have to give God glory. I does it all the time because, my battle is long and hard, but I still say, man, it hadn't been for God on my side. It could have been worse. That's how we have to look at it. We have to look at if God had not been on our side and our stone. It'll be worse without God right there, picking up the pieces. He's the creator, that can solve problems, that can fix problems, So we have to always recognize, and give God honor and glory. If it had not been for God on our side, we'll still be trapped in that big old net. But God had to come along and break the snare, to let his people free. So, and we also talk about the debt ceiling had been suspended, for 2025, and so now they don't have to worry about no limit, no spending limit, you know. So, and I also talk about the welfare, I'm trying to find ways to also, to help with the budget, you know, uh, if you work, you pay taxes. So we have the immigrants coming down here to the United States. They all have to work. That's taxes. And so you're gonna still receive your welfare until you find a job, but you have a time limit on finding a job. And once you find a job, they'll be cut off, and you have to update your food stamps and your Medicaid. So that's all I have for you on tonight. And remember, we have to recognize if it had not been for God on our side, in our storm, our situation, whatever the case is, if it had not been for God on our side, we would have been torn into pieces. We would have been still on the ground, But see, when we on that ground, just like when Georgia was in that pit, God pulled us out. God raised us up. We be in the pit, and God will pull us out of the pit. Just like He did Joseph. He had told Joseph in his dream that you're gonna be you're gonna be in charge. You're gonna be a king. You're gonna be the only one in your family gonna be a king. And sure enough, whatever God had told Joseph, it came to pass. He probably thought it wasn't gonna come to pass because he was thrown in the pit, he was thrown in jail, all kinds of stuff happened to you. And you have to be wondering, if my dream gonna come to pass. God said I'm gonna be this and be that, but it isn't. I'm getting beat down. I'm in a pit. Joseph was lied on, drawn in jail. But all the stuff you got to go through hell, to rise up to the top. It ain't gonna be that easy. But the Israelites, they was in there for 430 years. In that big old net under Pharaoh. Until God had to come along and break their net so they can escape. Remember when I put that out, they said it was so much loud noise, that the Israelites was marching on out like birds. So that's all the story I have for you in the news. I'm gonna keep you updated with the debt ceiling, but it seems like it's okay right now. It's been suspended, so they don't have no spending limit right now, and this gonna be like this to 2025. So y'all have a good night, a safe night, and I see y'all on the next video.